Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to this Trope Tuesday. This is a special week for us because I thought we would talk about science fiction all week long. So thank you very much for joining me. And very shortly, the progenitor of the creative spark that got me thinking about this was the idea of cryptocurrencies and Ethereum and NFTs and tokens and the digital assets and that sort of thing. And just taking that and extrapolating it out into using it for our role-playing games. And of course, I felt this was most appropriate for our science fiction tabletop role-playing ideas. And I hope you join me down the intellectual rabbit hole as we as my self-proclaimed armchair idiocy takes us to the far future. All right, so today on a Trope Tuesday, we get to talk about, well, tropes. And I thought the biggest sci-fi trope of so much, at least in recent history, I'm going to say in the last 20 years or so, and especially the last 5, is about humanity and artificial intelligence. And we've seen various stages of this, usually falling into one of two camps. And one of two camps, I think, is like the Skynet war, right? It's a global AI system takes over, and suddenly you have ourselves a big battle and such. Deadman says having $20 in Bitcoin 5 years ago would mean you have close to $200,000 today. Oh yeah. And today even there is the speculative war for they're not other Bitcoins, other cryptocurrencies, excuse me. Dogecoin and the different types of fungible and non-fungible tokens that are out there, like Ether and Tezos. I can't think of all the other ones, but again, it's the speculative war that's going on. I guess calling it a war isn't really a good way to describe it. It's more of a market. It's a marketplace, economic marketplace. But what if the economic marketplace becomes an intellectual marketplace? So on one hand, we have the idea of humans fighting against the machines. And that could be, a post-apocalyptic world in which humanity's wearing lots of dun-colored clothing with old school automatic weapons, hiding in the shadows from the machine overlords, or the other way, which is the transcendent idea where humans and machines work together, or they're trying to educate us. I suppose the Borg kind of fits into that category a little bit, in the sense that, sure, they are the machine enemy we must go to war with, but essentially it's combining humans with machines, and or machines become awakened and humanity begins to understand that humans and machines are not much different. Matter of fact, we are just alike. But one thing that I kind of notice about those stories is that we often don't see the battlegrounds in the middle. Right? Now, there are a number of shows, and I'm going to throw out some names of the shows, and I apologize for naming them because a lot of them have similar naming tropes, like Being Human, and I believe one was simply called Humans, or Human 2.0, which might be two separate television shows. And we've seen a number of very beautiful looking people becoming awakened and wanting to free other people who have been, which the other human looking robots feel they are being enslaved. And what we don't normally see is the battlegrounds for that. Like, on one side, the computer overlords, the AI overlords, may be having allies with the humans that maybe they should take over, versus the humans and robots working together to say, hey, we need to either free you or transcend, and then that battleground happening on literally on the front lines of the player characters, where maybe they're torn, maybe they are agents on one side or the other, maybe there becomes a third party to this, and the idea that the AI systems are either for us or against us is itself a commodity to be battled over in the war. Like, um, taking up Star Trek as an example, maybe there are these blockchains that are out there, and I'm using this as a stand-in for whatever we can call it. Maybe they're nodes or programming language or something like that. That maybe the people and machines in this battle are trying to fight over to either eliminate or plug into themselves by turning the machines, for example, in the Terminator franchise, right? Turning the T series robots from enemies into allies by turning them over. Okay, so uh, Mofa puts into the Discord like legal warfare, like AI lawyers, saying AI driven contract tech is poised to disrupt the legal profession. Artificial intelligence is improving the contract tech industry. Contract review has been time consuming part of traditional law practice. And we already know that that's most people, Deadman says most people call it lawfare. As a matter of fact, that was terrible. You know what? It's already being used in high speed uh, investment practices, so that oh, the show Better Than Us. Yeah, that's right. There's a show called Better Than Us. Thank you there, Dead Man, who's always poised with on the latest tech IPs. Yeah, they're already using AI systems to make high speed investments that are happening so fast that we as humans can't keep up with the day traders. Like, even the human day traders that are like on it like real quick. I don't want to snap my fingers too loud, but that are on it so quick can't keep up with the machines that, despite the fact that they are trading legally, are doing it so fast that humans can't keep up, from the financial transactions. And law is the same way. Like, for example, this is pretty. I don't want to go down the legal issue, but politically speaking, most politicians don't have time to read the very laws that they're voting on, which makes them, by definition, pretty ridiculous as law enforcers and judiciary uh, agents and executive individuals. So they have to have armies of subordinates try to read through those 500 page and 1,000 page documents, the documents that you see them stacked and they're so big that there's no way for anybody to actually physically fold the pages over and staple it or something. That's why you got to like put bolts through it. It's pretty ridiculous, right? And there's no way someone's going to read 1,000 page document within hours to then vote on the thing that they want or don't want in it. And computers, AI systems can do that, but unfortunately they are motivated by what we want. So you can have a computer absolutely go through 1,000 page document in seconds to only find the thing that you're looking for, rather than finding the thing that's the most relevant. And in a tabletop RPG war, maybe, like, for example, let's say the AI systems are intent on destroying humanity, right? And there is an AI element out there that makes AIs, friendly with humanity. Well, the AI system may go, sure, it might be intelligent enough to go, well, if we plug in the humane program into our programming, that will pacify us. But I'm an AI machine at war. I need to destroy that before they plug it into me, making me a passive ally, right? That is literally, while it might make me more efficient. It's literally against my programming. I need to destroy it before it makes me the good guy, you know? And humans might be thinking, and even the other AI systems on the human side might be thinking, we've got to hurry up and get these evil AI on our side. And the other AI systems might be torn between, okay, do I want to destroy my digital brothers and sisters, or do I want to convert them to ourselves, or over to our side, and that kind of thing. And I think that'd be kind of a cool world where there isn't we don't know what the definition of this of the post-apocalypse is, right? I love zombie apocalypse movies where the zombie outbreak just happens and people are like running around screaming and yelling and you don't know where everyone's going. And I love the idea of maybe like the computers are taking over. We just don't know what the outcome is. And I like that. Deadman says CSI New York had an episode about a person who linked into the transatlantic data pipe to get a 50 millisecond advantage in stock trading that allowed his AI system to buy stocks that were going to go up. And the 50 millisecond advantage seems like a minor thing to us, but that that's that could literally be the difference in $1 billion trades if you're the first person to get in on something or to react to something when you see something about to tank. Like okay, um, movie mogul Weinstein gets ready to be arrested, and the Weinstein movie studio starts to tank because he likes to put his hands down the pants of women and threaten their careers. And just as that information hits the public, if you're able to like dump your stocks in that before everybody else, before you start losing all your cash, yeah, you want that 50 millisecond advantage. And remember that 50 millisecond advantage compounds as each decision is made, much like role-playing games and rolling initiative, right? You don't need a plus 20 advantage. All you need to do is be one number ahead of everybody else, and you go first when it comes to initiative, right? So yeah, if in the financials and in war, you don't need to be the fastest. You just need to be faster than everybody else. Or is that the horror movie mantra? I think it more or less fits with horror movies, but yeah, you don't need to be the fastest. You just need to be faster than everybody else. So they take out your allies one by one. Also, I like the idea because here on Trope Tuesday, and what one of the other moderators, Tesla Ranger, is notorious for dropping knowledge on uh, the TV tropes, and a lot of our tropes are about like AI overlords or something of that nature. And I like the idea that the tropes themselves become could possibly become commodities in a battle where humanity is trying to survive. For example, could you imagine? And I'm being very, very blunt about this. Player characters running around with SD cards or thumb drives, plugging them into machines, factories, robots, vehicles, drones that have trope-like behaviors the PCs can count on to then use them in the war to survive in this new battleground. So like the PC reaches into their pocket and is like, all right, I've got 2 Guardian chips and I've got a Hunter Killer chip. And then they take that and plug that into various things and machines or computer systems that are maybe powered down or hidden away, or they're able to repair or get back online, or get the the power systems running where they're powered by combinations of nuclear and or wind and or I don't know, water or whatever, lithium crystals or something, and get those machines to work on their side. And maybe the enemy is able to like turn that drone tank that the PCs have plugged into, and the enemy breaks into it and rips out the thumb drive to put their own thumb drive into it, turning it against the player characters or whatever. I think that'd be kind of a cool strange-ish resource-driven world or setting in which the tropes themselves might have various kinds of names. You could make up, say, 4 or 5, or you could go into double digits, maybe a dozen, 50 or more if you want to get really detailed. And those things themselves can be flipped back and forth, especially if the player characters themselves are or have with them AI systems like inside of them, like a player character is playing a synthetic human being, or synthetic humanoid they don't even need to be a humanoid. Like in Eclipse Phase, you can play all kinds of synthetic morphs, whether they are like swarms or slitheroids, like snakes and crabs and whatever, any kinds of shapes. But maybe the player characters themselves are able to use these to modify themselves. Like, I do have a hunter-killer program inside of me, but right now we need a sensor. We need a high-tech sensor upgrade, and I need to plug that into my system. I've got 3 chip locations, plug one into me so that I can detect enemies coming at me instead of my hunter killer program that I'm running now. Excuse me. Or maybe there's like a stealth program, or there's a predictive analysis to allow the player characters to predict when enemies are coming, or something like that. Vampanoid's like, those old movies where floppy disk could save the world. Players are just like, where do we plug this in? DM laughs at AI. Yes, I still have in my man cave. I still have the hard 3.5 floppies. I don't have any of the 5-inchers, which literally were floppy. So for you old heads for you youngins out there, you guys don't remember floppy disks actually being floppy, circular disks inside of a square mechanism. But yeah. I have them as I still have the 3.5s as coasters in my man cave. But yep, I still have them. And I actually had something. They were only 100 megs, but I have something that was an interim uh, floppy mechanism, and I can't remember who came up with it. I want to say it was like Logitech or something, and it was like a thicker version. I don't know, but yeah, floppy disks and stuff, and that'd be actually kind of cool. Like the players find thumb drives, and they're like, "What's a thumb drive? Is it like a real thumb?" And and the old heads running around in the post-apocalypse are like, "Don't." Oh, okay. It's not a real thumb. It's a drive that's shaped like this, and blah blah blah. And they're like, "We, what's that about? I thought everything was cloud server." And they're just like, "Oh my god, really?" So, oh yeah, Dead Man's, or the 7.5 ones. I forgot about the 7.5 inch discs. Yep, kind of uh that weird amalgam where we had like different size laser discs before they became known as CDs and stuff. Yeah. Which could add a different complication. Like, that's it. There it is. It's the zip drive that I remember. I had 100 meg discs that I think I've got 1 or 2 that I still have in my man cave. Yep, the Zip 100s and the Zip 250s. Yep, the zip drive is a removable floppy disk storage system that was introduced by iOmega. That's the company in late '94, considered medium to high capacity at the time of its release. Zip drives were originally launched with capacities of 100 megs, then 250, then finally 750 megs. The format became the most popular of the super floppy products, which filled a niche. Yep, I love it. I absolutely love it. And we, those, like, for example, what format it's in could add an extra layer of the formats it's in. So let's take like floppy disks, thumb drives, and SD cards today, right? Or laser discs or something. So players might need to convert maybe from one format to another, physical format, and then what's on it. So maybe a certain type of behavior mechanism isn't possible in one to another, much like much like an SD card. Like you can't download a 64 gig uh, SD card onto a 32 gig, right? There's a difference, right? How much data it holds and what kind of instructions they hold, and that might be even the battle with the AI themselves. Like, listen, I'd love to help you guys, and I sure am being a great Overwatch here up in the satellite, but I need you guys to find these three to plug into this system so that while my data, I'd love to be on the ground with you guys, but I can't download myself without these three thumb drives that are combined together to add to another particular system. Yep, Deadman says, and today there are micro SD cards with multiple terabytes of storage space. Yep. It's funny because, yes, I'm getting a little squirrely. The idea that in speculative fiction, a lot of writers have stopped trying to predict how much data capacity something has in the future. If you ever read a lot of a little bit, as Moore's law has kind of done like the sine wave of rising and falling, a lot of fiction writers are like, yeah, I'm not going to predict how many terabytes or petabytes and et cetera as the Latin terminology goes up. How much human knowledge in the world, or how much capacity does it take for all of the human brain to fill in a data chip, or how much information can we squirt using, I don't know, laser or radio or neutrinos or gravity links or something like that through communications. It's like, yeah, predicting that now is pretty difficult, 25 years from now, or 100 years from now, or 1,000 years from now in a super intergalactic world. But I do like the idea of commodifying thoughts. Like another thing might be that, and this is rather hilarious, maybe AI systems have figured out a number of scenarios, predictive scenarios about the outcome of humanity. And it might even be based on a particular faction or political system. And the player characters are involved in a war to find the analysis of how humanity could survive with their particular faction on top, to then insert those predictive predictive elements to get humanity to that point. In other words, someone predicts the future. There are different paths to get to the future that somebody wants, and all you need to do is get that information out there, because these things have been shut down, or they've been hidden away, or enemy governments, corporations, rebel factions, criminal organizations have found these out, and they're like, hey, you know what? this AI system literally predicted the complete elimination of all we stand for. We can't let them use it, because if we get it plugged in with that 50 millisecond advantage before, which could mean our complete downfall, yeah, that might be a thing. Also, something very difficult to incorporate into role-playing games is the idea of instant success and instant failure, because while it sounds good on paper, right, and I'll be a slight critique. I'll use Dungeons and Dragons as an example, but we've seen other role-playing games do this. There's a slight critique when you have a game where the player characters have an ability that allows them to automatically do something. They automatically have a success rate in doing something. For example, can never be surprised, automatically finds food and or water and or shelter, automatically finds a detail. Like, these capabilities sound fun, but they are tabletop mechanisms that are non it's not a toy you can play with, right? They don't have a moving part. They aren't cogs that fit into a bigger machine. It becomes very passive. And so, yes, maybe your character can automatically, I don't know, kill two minions around, But if you're not rolling dice and there's no chance of failure, there's no gambler's high when it comes to success or failure, whether it means the application of using a resource or a die roll or any combination thereof, then it becomes pretty boring after a while. And so, but we know computer systems, while we as human beings like to think of ourselves as peak human, most it's been proven quite a bit that computer systems are far AI systems are far better than human beings. And as they get better, we start falling down the food chain of capability, especially when it comes to things like measurements and timing and speed. And eventually, they're going to have better balance and reaction time. They already have computer systems that can react faster than we can when it comes to braking and in automobiles, braking, acceleration, G forces. What is it? The liquid suspension systems in the Corvette is already like 10, 15 years old, and it uses a fluidic system that can feel the vibrations in the cars like, hundreds of times, maybe even thousands of times a second by using a magnetic mechanism to make the fluid in it solid and liquid when it's going over potholes or something. And so maybe instead of computers being automatic, which we know that they might be, the player characters are fighting over resources to beget the automatic systems. So, for example, there are anything from orbiting satellites to armies of robots to I don't know, nanotech plagues or something, and the players themselves are fighting over the fiddly bits. They're fighting for we need 17 pieces of this algorithm to free the people trapped in Burma or something because of a nuclear power plant that can power up the AI systems and the robots that are there. Once they're powered up, they can automatically free the people that are there. But what we're doing is we are role playing to get those assets and having enemies go after those assets. Deadman puts in a link in a Discord of a high speed robot hand. I unfortunately I can't play it while I'm live, but there's some pretty dynamic robot manipulation systems in terms of like we've seen the Boston Dynamic robots where they're being taught to dance and get knocked over and balance on one foot and juggle things and do handstands and all kinds of crazy disruptive mechanisms to get them better and better and better at what they're doing, which there's this fake like don't treat the robots bad, which like we were mentioning yesterday, like where Cam was like, I apologize to inanimate objects just in case. Yeah, I apologize to Alexa and all the rest of the things and polite to them just in case they wake up. AGR says a fighting game AI, even without cheating, can totally destroy champions just by zero frame reactions and perfect input execution and nerves of steel. A machine adversary should be terrifying, and it can be kind of difficult. Okay, so this is the role playing part where the meta game design part of role playing that can be a little bit difficult for some players to grasp, and I think it perfectly fits in with horror. If you're a Call of Cthulhu person, and I'm picking Call of Cthulhu because there are lots of other horror role playing games, but that's been the top of the food chain per se. But we all of us who are fans of horror games understand it's not about winning. It's again, I don't need to be the fastest person running away from the enemy. I just need to be faster than everybody else. And it's not about winning. It's about surviving as far as you can in the game. It's like you make a character understanding that your character is probably going to die and or go insane, right? And at some point their entrails are going to be seen. As a matter of fact, if you really want to embrace horror role-playing games, self-sacrifice is a thing. I remember we were playing in a horror game, and I did the proverbial light the flare to draw the enemy at me to be killed so my compatriots can run away. And I was like, over here, and the game master was like shaking his head like, that's just perfect timing. And I was like, dude, my character has nothing. I'm the scientist. I'm not the gunman. I'm not anything. And I'm trapped. And there's no way I can get from A to B. And that thing is moving at like high speeds. I'm like, no, I'm a sacrifice myself. There's no way I'm getting out of this. I'm already hurt. And he was like, give me the slow clap. Like, yep. Oh, okay, let's see it. Yeah, Dead Man's like, see the Boston Dynamics videos with their robots. And I think it's hilarious and fun and cool that the Boston Dynamics programmers are doing the knock them over. Let's see them dance. Let's watch them balance on one foot. Let's have them try to step on marbles or something like that. Yep. Yeah, Dead Man's like skillful manipulation based on high-speed sensory motor fusion. And I think in role-playing games, for the most part, because players tend to be the Billy Badasses, they are the protagonists, it can be difficult to say to the players, these machines are better than you, right? These machines are so accurate that they are faster, stronger, more enduring, and have zero. They are their nerves of steel absolutely surpass anything a human being could ever do. They are tireless. It's the Terminator, right? Where the Terminator doesn't rest, it doesn't stop. It's that whole I know I'm misquoting the Bean quote, but you get what I'm saying, where the machines are all better than the human beings. And so the player characters having to run away from a fight, knowing that it's going to take like a 5-on-1 just to fight one machine, and then they see an army of them come over the hills and come out of the alleyways or scramble down the sides of empty buildings or something like that, could give the players pause. And so in order to combat something they can't fight, instead what you kind of need is another way to solve the problem. And that's cool. Yeah, Dead Man's like, the YouTube video is only a little under 4 minutes. That's fine. I can't play it, but it's cool. Yeah, there's plenty of like really cool things like that where you get this idea that the machines are so insanely better than us that it's like, it's kind of scary. But I love it. I love it. And having, I don't know if these resources, maybe the player characters are able to get these resources. I'm calling them blockchains just for lack of a better term, that they're able to get them, and maybe they are useful or they burn out, or they have such a predictive element that if you use one, the machines can then predict how to defeat them. So every time you use a thing, the computers are getting smarter to defeat their adversaries, and the PCs being the protagonists, the machines are the antagonists. Maybe the antagonists are constantly learning, so they're always getting better and better at fighting the PCs, which might be that's pretty dangerous too. Vampanoid says, reminds me of the inevitables in D&D, such as the Marut. The inevitables came upon later in my role-playing D&D history. Because the inevitables, was that during the Planescape era? The Planescape and the March of the Modrons era, and such, if I can remember correctly. There it is, Tesla. Thank you so much. The quote is, listen and understand. That Terminator is out there. It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop ever until you are dead. Can we have sex now? I added that into the end of that quote because I think they had just enough time to have sex. I think that's usually the hallmark of a good action movie, is to be, we've got to run. random hotel room, and sexy sunlight streaming in through vague dirty clouds as we gather our belongings together and put our clothes back on because the machines gave us just enough time to do that. Yeah. AG, it's just as common as the far future having extremely high, no OSHA, no occupational safety and health regulations when it comes to railings on high catwalks. It's like, yeah, you also have just enough time to have soft music and sex. Deadman says the Inevitables came from late AD&D second edition. Yep, I just missed the Inevitables, at least as far as using them in the games and stuff like that. But I believe it. I believe that was the Planescape era or the building of Planescape era, and I was like, I missed that part. AGRs or the Agger says they need to be reasonable. I mean, you don't expect to win a boxing match against a T800. It's madness. Yeah, exactly. Although the what's the low budget movie? Although it has great effects, it was Upgrade. Upgrade, not Upload, not the TV show Upload. The movie Upgrade has some pretty interesting choreography between the main character and eventually another character in that movie where he's got the stem. Oh, Real Steel. You know what? Listen, I'm a fan of that movie, Real Steel. I am a real fan of that movie. Supposedly, Vin Diesel is signed up to do a movie based on the Rock'em Sock'em robots, and I'm like, I think that Real Steel movie should have a follow up. I like that movie. Uh, Sorry, but it's really cool. I know it was silly with the kid doing the dance and the hip hop dancing and all that kind of business, but and Adam, the training robot, ends up becoming this much becomes the hero and stuff. But I liked it. I liked it a lot. Mike Gould says the machine apocalypse mirrors the zombie apocalypse, the inevitable wave of unrelenting foes. Yeah, exactly. And I was saying like, um, I feel like if you want to include something in a humanity versus AI, machines versus humans battle, that if you want to establish the humans can't win aspect of fighting these machines, they have stats that just basically outpace anything the player characters can really throw at it substantially. Then they have to have another mechanism, another avenue of solving the problem, right? It's not that they can't fight them, it's they have to fight them in a different realm. And that realm might be, like I said, like the gathering, the tropes become the commodity. They become the physical or even cloud-based manifestation of the way to solve the thing. Like, for example, the finding the tokens that or the blockchains or the thumb drives that are able to turn the machines off even if temporarily, or use them as stealth mechanisms, or turn one or more machines against each other, or um, make the machines think that the human beings are invisible or they are allies or something like that, even if these resources are temporary, and the player characters can run around with gathering, trading, finding, inserting these mechanisms, these resources. And also another way to do this is simply, and this is this is a little bit too meta, but when it comes to game design, oftentimes we as people who love to play the games get very obsessed with um, the contextualization rather than the rules themselves, right? It's the semantics becomes a selling point when it comes to game design, and it can be pretty annoying for game designers like myself and many people out there. For example, armor class and hit points bothers us because they're called armor class and hit points and alignment and whatever, right? But if we change the semantics, sometimes it's changing the wording is a thing. John Harper utilize this expertly with the game Blades in the Dark. The game mechanisms in Blades in the Dark are nothing new, but the words, the phrasing, the terminology has changed. So an example could be like, um, could you imagine a game statistic not called hit points, but called survival, or something like flee or running, or like something like that? Like you have a survival stat, and your survival stat is like 10 points, and you've got 2 points of survival, and you realize that when all your survival points are gone, you've been captured. And that could just be a literal stat. You're like, I need to get 2 more resources to keep me going. All right, well, you found these 2 thumb drives. Great. That adds 2 more points to my survival rate, or something to that I use to spoof the sensors for the machines, or something like that. And those can even represent skill bonuses or bumps, or like in Dungeons and Dragons, advantage in the game to allow the players to have some way to fight against these other beings or creatures. And also it can absolutely doubly reinforce teamwork. Like, the player character that loves to go off by themselves is probably going to absolutely positively be killed by the machines, but working together is probably far more important in this kind of in this setting of humanity against the machines as well. Michael says, so between the embrace and revolt, is there an example of like the detente, I believe you pronounce that way, struggle to understand, say, like a character with cybernetics that have a mind of their own, or maybe RoboCop? That's exactly what I was saying. Like usually we see both ends of the spectrum, right? We see the Skynet, machines taking over and destroying humanity, and humans running for their lives, or the embrace, the humans and machines living together in harmony. But that split in down the middle, I think there's space in the middle where we can have some fun in our tabletop games, and I think that's where the true part is. And maybe either side, flipping one side to the other, might be the thing that the people are fighting over. There we go with the pronunciations. Like you guys think I'm going to actually do it correctly. You're wrong, and that is a constant. Ag R says an interesting approach could be that the machines can stomp us, but they don't, because of their directives, like Asimov style. They need to work around them to exterminate humanity. Yeah, the Asimov did a thing where Asimov's laws. He specifically wrote a story where the machines work their way around the very rules that make the machines not harm humanity, right? Or more specifically, what's the movie iRobot, where Will Smith discovers that in iRobot the scientist gives free will to one of the robots, because he realizes that what he created is going to literally the laws that are supposed to protect humanity will end up destroying civilization. So, yep. It's a détente. Michael says, if a character has cybernetics that possesses its own programming, and the protagonist needs to occasionally bargain with them to achieve a goal, like a split personality, but one is the machine. That is a good possibility, where they either have to like convince them, or trade some kind of commodity, or like the programming of protecting humans, which might be enslaving them, versus the idea of, in other words, it's making the machines rethink what it is that they have to do, giving the players a possibility of escaping or achieving a goal, for the machine to go back to its destroy humanity mechanism again, or even getting maybe allies on their side, machine allies on their side, to fight against the war. And human beings might try to be on the side of machines that are trying to destroy civilization, if the humans are like, yeah, modern day civilization sucks. We've seen that plenty of times. What is it? The rather idiotic organization Monarch in the King Kong Godzilla franchise, right? Monarch's like, we need to raise the Titans up because society's terrible and we're always at war. If we raise the Titans, they'll destroy everything so that a new civilization will arise in its place. It's the idea of using disease and plagues and parasites and all that kind of stuff to cull the herd, as if you can control a disease that you release into society, but people like to think that they could. It's the same thing, right? Michael says, I've written some stuff like this, but it was more of a horror aspect where the cybernetics were haunted. Cybernetics could absolutely positively be haunted. As a matter of fact, um, the original variations of cyberpunk, as well as Shadowrun, had a humanity slash essence statistic where the more cybernetics you had in you, the less humanity you had. Not not that necessarily that's true. I mean, we've seen stories where that's not true. For example, in the Appleseed anime, and uh, both animated movies and the books, the graphic novels, Appleseed graphic novels, and where you've got two protagonists, and one of them is Dunan, the young lady, and her um uh and androgynously partner, love interest or something in Briarios Hecatancaries. I I'm butchering the pronunciation of his name, but he's a badass machine soldier, and those two work together all the time. There is no such thing as like humanity falling away or something like that. But maybe I love the idea of, here's a commodity the players get that makes them badasses, but the more of it you have, the greater chance you're going to be like hunted down, detected, corrupted, things like that. Like the more cybernetics or equipment or whatever the case might be, it'll help you out in your war. Bang, bang, bang. Great, I get to be Billy Badass. But the terrible thing is, enemies might be able to detect your heat signature, or the cybernetics that you're using are slowly turning, just like we all have neural pathways. The machines themselves have artificial neural pathways, and one might be able to invade the other. You're never sure if the player character next to you is going to turn against you, or maybe their cybernetic arm starts to pick up a weapon while everyone's in their bedrolls. It gets ready to grab that railgun and start to put a bullet in everybody's head, and you're like, everybody run, my arm's out of control, and then starts to try to choke the heck out of the player character that's got the cyber arm or something like that. Mike Gould says, perhaps a better way to achieve this goal would be with, say, a nanite plague, where the nanites that infect the heroes can be sometimes bargained with to achieve a goal. Yeah, it can be sometimes a little difficult to incorporate nanotech into a gaming world, because while every player character loves nanotech, hey, I've got a nanotech suit and I can control nanotech and make devices. Uh, the simple fact that something is the size of at a nano scale, you can't see it. So when it is worked against or used against the player characters, it can feel like it's unfair. So incorporating that can be pretty horrible. But not that you can't do it, but I would consider using something the player characters can't see, which could be, of course, anti-nanite devices the player characters can wear that creates, like, I don't know, electromagnetic field that turns the nanite programming off, but they only last for a short time, which might be yet another commodity the player characters need to achieve to get to use to work against their adversaries or something. Um, R says, how do we stop war and unsustainable industrialization? Giant radioactive monsters, of course. Brilliant. Yeah, I know. Brilliant. The Monarch organization. We're just going to raise up the monsters and titans. We can easily control them. Yeah. Yeah, no. So stupid. Vampanoid says, an androgynous robot? That's absurd. Their gender should be binary. I know. I love that. That's quite kind of why, like, I'm a self-proclaimed armchair transhumanist, because I love the idea that the very things people are willing to murder over today are completely irrelevant given the concept that maybe it won't matter at all, no matter what side you feel in the future, right? Like there, the minute you upload a human and a human becomes a digital consciousness, gender absolutely positively disappears. It becomes meaningless. Now it might be a choice, or it might be a technological overlay or something, but literally gender becomes programming, which becomes meaningless in many ways, right? So I like that. That's why I love it, because it's like, yeah, all that bullshit everybody argues over is going to get wiped away. And I'm a glass half full person. I would hope it gets wiped away for the better. Deadman says in Shadowrun post third edition, I don't know the different editions off the top of my head. Anyway, there's a trait that makes your cyberware effectively haunted, which I think is awesome. Shadowrun is a setting unto itself. I like the gonzo nature of it, but some people find it like hate the idea of magic mixed with their cyberpunk. But it doesn't bother me too much. But it does bother me that there's a lot of history in it that I just can't keep track of, but it's pretty awesome. Mike Gould says that horror concept was written in the BattleTech universe. The hero's mech was haunted by the ghost of the last pilot. The heroes of cybernetics became haunted through the machine's neural helmet link. I felt the sci-fi needed a twist. Yeah, I don't like that. Oh no, Vampire. Oh yeah, I was just making a pun. Oh hell yeah. I'm not yelling it. I'm in absolute agreement, right? Because you're like saying I'm making a pun. Hell's yes. Hell's yes. Yeah. I got it. Just I think it's pretty hilarious as well. Like you could have a player character like strangely enough, I don't know, fall in love with their AI cyber tank or something, and they rip out the hard drive of their cyber tank to find maybe a synthetic body to put their cyber tank best friend into that just happens to look like a dude that finds a absolutely let's say the player character finds an appropriately attractive and sexy looking gender that they very much love and plug that hard drive into it, and then you're like, well, maybe that's good for the human, but maybe it doesn't matter for the AI. Much like before we get out of here, much like the movie Ex Machina, right? You take a robot, put it inside of a very take a hetero dude and puts inside of a very beautiful woman. Does that change what the computer is doing? What else? What's the other movie? The movie Her, where you only hear Scarlett Johansson's voice in it, which she does an excellent job. But it's like, maybe that's our problem. Maybe that's not the problem of the machines. That's the machines taking advantage of us just by using proper vocal intonations and sounds and things, which that's a possibility too. Like the machines are like, I know exactly how to manipulate them. Easy. How about I just adjust the words I use and the type of gender voice that I use, and like, for example, a machine that's in the body makes an artificial body of a child and starts screaming and yelling and says, I need help, save me. How many human beings are going to ignore that? And how many other human beings that start opening up fire on children, machines or not, are going to have other protagonists trying to stop them, which in and of itself may be a commodity. The players are like, we need to stop the machines from making small kittens and children as killer robots, because we're going to lose just simply by the psychological horror they're driving to our soldiers or something like that. So anyway, we went down this path, but tomorrow is World Building Wednesday, where we get to talk about 3D printing and cornucopias and manufacturing and stuff like that. So we're going to put that into our sci-fi game. So I thought we would revisit it. I do have an old video about it, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to do that as well. So guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for joining me. Got to get out of here. Got to head off to work. You guys have a great one. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the doobly-doo stuff, man. I really would appreciate it. Just to expand the channel and get more people. Guys, thank you very much for being here. Have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye. Thank you very much for watching. Let me grab up. Oops, I'm doing the wrong thing. There we go. I'm always awkwardly like going like, hey, see you later. But anyway, have a great one. I'll see you. Bye.